Maybe we're not as smart as we think we are, us mortals. We thought technology would set us free, liberate us from menial tasks, democratize access to information and knowledge. We marveled at our ability to connect instantaneously to whoever, wherever, whenever. We even fell for the illusion that each one of us is our own brand with a global reach. Beyond the way the digital age plays tricks on the human mind comes an even bigger threat, it seems. Have we now actually lost control of technology? An open letter by some of tech's most prominent minds is calling on world leaders to enact a 6-month pause in the development of artificial intelligence. Simply put, is AI already out of control? Silicon Valley giants like Microsoft, Google, Meta are locked in a fierce battle to be commercial leaders. With what oversight? Beating humans at chess? Well, that's ancient history. We'll ask about the power and prowess of technology that's going so fast, faster than anyone predicted. Let's not kid ourselves. We're still pack animals, tribal in our loyalties to community, religion, political parties, football clubs. If computers know how to hone in on the stories that resonate and then tell them, then what next? Today in the France 24 debate, the alarm over the phenomenal rise of AI. With us, he's one of the signers of the petition, Rajat Sethi, Professor Emeritus of AI, Robotics, Technology, Ethics at Paris-Sorbonne University.
Hello.
Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
She's lectured in the geopolitics of artificial intelligence, internet governance researcher Leila Marche. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Tech entrepreneur Tariq Krim, good to see you again.
Good to see you again as well.
The France 24 debate, where you've joined the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, hashtag F24debate. More than 1,400 signatories and counting from Rajat Sethi here present, to the likes of Elon Musk. Brian Quinn has more.
Profound risks to society and humanity. Campaign group The Future of Life is sounding the alarm on the breakneck speed of developments in artificial intelligence. Elon Musk and Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak are among the more than 1,000 tech leaders who've signed an open letter calling for a 6-month pause in new AI experiments.
Recent months have seen AI labs locked in an out-of-control race to develop and deploy ever more powerful digital minds that no one, not even their creators, can understand, predict, or reliably control.
Their apprehension triggered by huge leaps forward in recent months, notably the release of the ChatGPT tool by Microsoft-backed tech firm OpenAI. GPT, generative pre-trained transformer, is now on its 4th iteration. It has impressed users with its ability to summarize complex documents, carry on conversations, and even compose music and poetry. It has, however, shown flaws in informational accuracy. The technology is already disrupting higher education, where students have used it to write papers for them. Medical and legal professionals have also adopted its use in search of greater efficiencies. Critics, including EU authorities, are warning that it could be used as a powerful tool of disinformation and cybercrime. U.S. investment banking giant Goldman Sachs, meanwhile, has said it could make millions of jobs obsolete.
I said one signer of this petition. We have 3 signers of the petition around the room. It's unanimous, so everybody's got alarm over this. Let me begin with you, Rajat Sethi. When did alarm bells first go off for you?
Oh, that's not new. The development of artificial intelligence in general, not of these systems specifically, we'll get back to that, has raised ethical issues since a long time, but specifically there was a great effort since 2016, for example, 16, 17. There was the Asilomar principles that were a call also and signed by many experts on AI. It wasn't about a pose, it was about really having an ethical approach to developing those systems. And then the European Commission has started to design its policy for AI, and in 2018 they organized a high-level expert group on AI, of which I was a member, to come up with recommendations for ethical development. And these were the recommendations for a trustworthy AI. The OECD has also published AI principles in 2019. UNESCO has just published last year the recommendations and also ethics of AI document.
And then fast forward to, what was it, just a few months ago, the world is kind of shocked when they see ChatGPT's explosion. Particularly, I mean, it started with whether or not you can tell if students are cheating on term papers, but it's much more than that.
Well, it's a kind of beast which is somewhat different because it can generate text. It's not an AI system that just takes data and crunches data. Of course, it does this because this is how it generates its knowledge, but it generates text, and this text is very much human-like. It looks like something that has been written by human beings, even poems, for example. This text generation ability is really for us humans who are used to use language to exchange with each other, giving it a specific flavor, which is, as I said, human-like. The problem, though, is that what it writes, it's just correlations between the items that were in its training set, which is a large set of data on the internet. It doesn't understand what it says. It doesn't have any semantics. It's just characters put together. They look like humans, humanly written, but the content...
So you sound like a man who can still catch out when his students are cheating.
Not necessarily, because it's very human-like, but it has a style as well, so you can catch out something about it.
Layla Morch, a few years back, we as journalists all quivered because Yahoo had instituted this plan to have computer-written business articles, and that failed miserably. But that was then, this is now.
Yeah, I feel like this is what's always so surprising with tech. You never know when it's going to catch your breath and just blow your mind and makes everyone just stop and be like, oh, what the hell is happening? And so a few years ago, we've been always kind of like predicting the future. And even before 2000, people stopped that, like 2000 would come and the world would be different. And we always project ourselves and we never really know and can predict when it will actually catch up and what will make me feel uneasy or not. So a few years ago, indeed, the journalist world, and I feel they should really start to be worried now because this is reaching a new level where we're really trying to struggle what will be the next big revolution. Will it be robot? And we had thousands of videos about robots looking like humans, and now we have the AI, and we had crypto and blockchain, and we keep having those waves of faster and bigger technology innovation that combine together.
But listening to Rajat Sethi, you have the impression that you still need a human being to guide it in the direction you want it to go.
I mean, you said in the beginning that we feel like we have lost control. I wouldn't go that far. Like, losing control is a powerful word. Losing control means that actually in that world, we're not capable to stop them. We are capable to stop them. We can unplug them. We don't have a big, gigantic AI that is mastering how ChatGPT is moving. So, yeah, according to what he said, it's true. We can still debug that. And even OpenAI is now launching a tool to help teachers recognize when students use ChatGPT to, so, in a way, tech can help stopping tech. But to go back to what he was saying, I wouldn't say we've lost control. I would just say we reached that space where, and you said that very well, the anthropomorphism that we feel when we look at those tools that make us feel like now it's not far from us, it's a mirror. And when I speak with ChatGPT, I feel like I'm making a bond and a connection. Mm-hmm. This is the new part. In whatever happening, nothing's new. It's the public. It's how we acknowledge that as a society. And this is where we feel like everything's changing. Nothing has been different. Like 6 months ago, 1 year ago, crazier things happen in tech. But now the capacity for an entire society to feel strengthened, empowered, to have this kind of like crazy consideration about what is happening and how can I interact with that and have a society talking with an AI tool, this is brand new. And this could go in a very good or a very wrong direction.
Yeah, Layla, more touching on something essential here, which is that we're at the point, and we see it already with smartphones, just with smartphones, and this isn't AI, where they do play tricks on our mind a little bit. We don't know what the impact is on our brains. And with AI, where does it next go, Tariq Karim?
This is a very interesting questions you're asking, is that I think the debate has totally changed. We were before in the age of digitalization. We're like turning the analog world into computerized world. And now the conversation is completely different. We're talking about cognitive domination. Basically, these tools...
Cognitive domination.
Yeah.
Whoever will control these tools will become the secondary brain of... We actually thought it was going to be, the blue collars, and now we're discovering it's the creative class with all, this text-to-image generation, or journalists, but also the business class. And in some ways, there's an incredible amount of money poured in, because the basic rule of technology is that winners takes all. And for the moment, Google, who basically invented the technology, gave it away, and now OpenAI is giving this technology as a true advantage to Microsoft. Everyone is basically back on a race to know who is going to do the biggest, the wildest, the most complete product. But there's still a problem underneath, and this is a problem you mentioned earlier, but it's always been the same. It's basically in AI, there's been two types of vision. There was a vision where we will teach the computer the values of the humans. That vision failed. And then there's a vision that is now pretty much picking up with ChatGPT, where we say, well, you know what? We won't teach the computer anything. He will learn by himself. And what do we give him to learn? The worst teacher possible, the entire internet, with all the great things like Wikipedia, but also the most, toxic content available. And then you have to spend an enormous amount of time making sure that what the computer has learned is not completely insane and crazy. And the problem we have, and I personally have, and the reason I actually signed this letter, is that OpenAI is now becoming opaque AI, because we don't really know how they do things. We don't really know who's teaching them. What is the alignment with humans?
Is it like Google with its search engine algorithm that's like a secret sauce, like the formula for Coca-Cola?
Exactly. I think in the very beginning, OpenAI was like, we're going to make it open. I mean, that was also Elon Musk. We have to give him credit. He was kind of scared of the future of AI, but it was also, he believed that models, what we call large computational models, should be open. And now everybody is understanding that this has an impact in the military. So it means that basically now whoever controls this will control an immense, amazing computing and cognitive power that is yet to discover. And so China is going in the same direction. Europe is trying to catch up. Every large company has an OpenAI or AI strategy. What they mean is they want to be a part of this new cognitive era that is just starting, and we don't really know where it's going.
And who controls it? Is it the big Silicon Valley giants that you just talked about there, or is it,
This combination is, first, all these large models are basically cost so much money that only the Google and some companies with large funding can actually do that, mostly in Silicon Valley. But AI is not only about software, it's also about hardware. And there's a company called NVIDIA, who's basically is in the US, but also has tied in Taiwan. And now Taiwan is becoming the powerhouse of all the chips. And China wants, as you know, something to do with Taiwan. Everybody is looking at the geopolitical landscape right now and say, how do we do to control all the pieces? So it's a completely new world. And it just started like a year ago, and it feels like already 10 years.
It adds a layer of importance to the visit next week by France's president and the European Commission president to China. Ursula von der Leyen, who will be traveling alongside Emmanuel Macron, who this Thursday said that she has worries, and she spelled them out bluntly, over who controls artificial intelligence.
The European Union needs to define its future relationship with China and other countries in sensitive, high-tech areas, such as microelectronics, quantum computing, robotics, artificial intelligence, biotech, you name it. where dual-use purposes cannot be excluded or human rights might be implicated, there will need to be a clear line on whether investments or exports are in our own security interest.
Well, for more, let's turn to Derek Thompson at the France 24 Observers, our fact-checking website. Derek, it sounds like your job's about to get a lot harder. You've been looking at technology not made in China, but in the USA.
That's right. We, at the Observers, we follow fake news and especially fake photos online. We try to detect them and tell viewers how to tell that they're fake. We've been looking at images recently that are generated by AI.
Oh, we're having a mic issue, Derek. We're going to try to cross back to you in 1 second. We're just going to get you mic'd up. Yeah, this issue of how AI is employed, how it's used concretely, and how it's already used for disinformation. Again, that's what you do at the France 24 Observer's website, is fact check for disinformation.
That's right. We fact check for disinformation. We track false images. We also go into schools. I'll tell you about that in a minute. It's Media in Schools Week here in France, and it's really important that we go into. We still don't
have Derek at this. Sorry, apologies for the sound issues. Let's try to test it once more. Derek, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I believe so. Yes, let's cross to Derek Thompson. Apologies for that. Okay. The joys of live television. Derek, tell us about, again, how artificial intelligence can be used to, spread disinformation.
Yeah, we've been worried about AI for about 5 years since the first deep fakes came out. That's when you take a famous person's face, put it onto an actor's body, and make them say outrageous things. We thought we were going to be flooded with fake news, with fake images and fake photos. But it didn't happen. We've been waiting for that moment, and it's now happening. Now, let's take a look at these photos that we came across online about a month ago. Now, they show, or they purport to show, the ongoing demonstrations in Paris about pension reform. Now, these pictures show, or again, purport to show, riot policemen from France's famous CRS riot police. They're hugging female protesters. It's a rare moment of emotion and calm amidst all the turmoil. And I think they look pretty good. I think you guys can see them in the studio. They look pretty realistic. These look like real people. Well, in fact, of course, they're not. These photos were all created by AI, by artificial intelligence. Now, there is some good news. There are ways to detect these photos still, even with the naked eye. There are some online tools that allow you to detect them, but even with the naked eye, if you know what you're looking for. So I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to find them. One thing is, when you see a blurry background, photos that are generated by AI very often have blurry backgrounds like that. You can't really see it here. Another thing to look for is faces. If you look at a lot of these images, you begin to see the same features on the human faces, especially on the women. You see sharp noses and high cheekbones. The same thing for this woman here. You begin to notice that. Another thing to look for is accessories. If we take a look at, we have another picture down here. This is another picture showing the demonstrations in Paris. Take a look at this man's glasses. You can see that something here clearly is messed up. For some reason, AI generating programs have a hard time drawing accessories. They have a hard time, apparently, with teddy bears and their mouths. This teddy bear has 3 mouths. They sometimes just make bizarre mistakes. And then this is interesting over here. For some reason, artificial intelligence, it should be able to spell a simple word like police, but they get it wrong. They spell it P-N-L. Same thing here. This is some sort of nonsense word here. For some reason, these AI image generating programs have a hard time with details like that. So there are still ways to detect them. When we go into schools, though, we warn people that the technology is moving very, very fast. Now, those 3 photos that I just show you were all made by the same company. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, we're having some problems with this. Forgive me. They were all made by Midjourney, which is a Silicon Valley-based company. That they're all made by Midjourney's by their Generation 4 technology, which was current as of last February.
Yeah, it's evolving so fast.
That's right. When we go into schools, here in France, it's Media in Schools Week. So we go into schools and we tell middle schoolers and high schoolers, we warn them about the dangers of AI and how fast it is developing. We remind them that AI is machine learning. So these artificial intelligence programs are learning from their mistakes. When they mess up with the hands, they learn, they get feedback from us, and they learn how to do it better. I have another picture.
And that's an important point to stress, because that's the point that Tariq Krim was making a moment ago. They're learning from their mistakes, you say.
That's right. And so each successive generation of program gets better than the last one. So you remember I showed you those let me see what's in this picture. Here we go. Now, one of the weak points of artificial intelligence is hands. They have a hard time drawing realistic hands, and sometimes, this is famous, they have a hard time counting fingers. So let's count the thumb and fingers. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a sixth finger. For some reason, AI has had a hard time counting fingers in the past. They had a hard time creating realistic hands. And then if we take a look here, the new Mid-Journey, they've just released the beta version of their version fifth generation. And this was the first photograph that I saw that was made by Mid-Journey 5. And take a look at those hands. Those are pretty realistic hands. The technology is going very, very fast. We warn kids that the world is changing. I grew up thinking that photos and videos were real, generally. This generation of kids, the people who are in high school now, 2023, are going to grow up in a different world where whenever they see photo and video, they're going to realize it could have been made by a computer.
And raising awareness is what you're doing with Media Week in schools. Many thanks, Derek Thompson, for that. You mentioned how fast it's changing. Among the signatories of this open letter that's been signed by all guests present here, best-selling historian Yuval Harari, who along with tech thinkers Tristan Harris and Asa Raskin penned a piece for the New York Times. They warn that by 2028, the U.S. presidential race might no longer be run by humans. But make no mistake, this goes beyond partisan politics, they say, and present superpower rivalries between the U.S. and China, or even the future of liberal democracies. They are stating in their piece that this is all of humanity that's in danger. For thousands of years, we humans have lived inside the dreams of other humans. We've worshipped gods, pursued ideals of beauty, and dedicated our lives to causes that originated in the imagination of some prophet, poet, or politician. Soon, we will also find ourselves living inside the hallucination of non-human intelligence. Tariq Krim, is it possible that computers may decide what we think?
I think computers are already deciding what we think. We just don't know it. I mean, you're going to get a credit. Does a computer decide for it? You want to take a seat? Does a computer decide which price you're going to apply? I mean, algorithms have been at the core of our life for pretty much since computers existed. What's actually new now is that before that, if you want, the ancient way of doing AI was about ranking. That's why Google made its fortune by ranking content. But the content has some touch to reality. Now we're basically disconnecting ourselves from reality. We have some kind of a synthetic world, entirely synthetic world, as we just saw in the pictures. And that's really, what's really frightening is that we are not ready. I mean, we're talking about regulation, but we talk about teachers, professional politicians that fall for like the fake Macron image that came after the demonstration after the 49.3 in France, and they were like professionals in the space, and they couldn't really. So what about everyone else? So I think there's the reason of the idea of a pose.
How is this different from, the Soviets airbrushing people out of pictures when they'd been purged in the 1920s and 30s?
Well, it can be generated by millions, and each of us will have a different view of the world. We're going to come to a world where each of us will not only have a different experience of the world, but everything we see will be exactly different, totally different. And that is a risk. The risk, of course, for the elections is that we cannot believe anything that Biden or any candidate against him will say, because it's the voice, it's the face, but we don't know if it's really what he said, because now you just need 3 seconds of anyone's voice to generate a type to text, and you generate whatever speech you want.
So a world where our content, Leila March, is catered to each different individual?
Yeah, I mean, that's already happening. We all have our own experience on Midjourney. I made a picture, he made a picture, we all made a picture, they all look different. I think what Tariq highlighted is super important. What matters is the proportion. Yes, everything we see, authorities, and in the past we saw that in different kind of proportion. Now, this is the scale. Now it's not only 1, 2, 3, 10 pictures. It's thousands of pictures per person, and Tariq highlighted that pretty well. I think if you want to take a step back about, I feel like so many things are being said, and it raised for me multiple questions. The first one is gonna happen. The tech is gonna get better, and the way we can now recognize what is AI, what is not, give it a year. It won't be possible anymore. So we should look forward.
You're saying we have 1 year?
I mean, look at what happened in the past few months. I mean, that 1 year would already be like, So just, I would just stop trying to see how we can handle what's happening now and just start to basically create regulation for certainty. And I think this is where we're bad at. We should create regulation and governance model to tackle and govern in an uncertain tech world, which raises for me a big question about what you said. If we have thousands of content for everyone, the main question is then how we track and how we authentify. And so if you work on...
How do you regulate that?
That's a big supply chain question, kind of. Can we have a supply chain for the content? Can we have authentication and make sure that when something now navigates, we have to reframe the entire infrastructure of the web. And I think there would be a lot of things to say from the protocol layer that we could go into and how we can restructure the way the internet functions nowadays, because it won't support these new super powerful tools. Or it will support, but there will be trade-off that we're not ready to make.
Tariq?
I was just going to say, because this is a point that I think I should talk about, is that you've been doing, I've been following and you've been doing AI for such a long time, and every time you've seen people telling you, yeah, don't worry, we've got everything under control. And it happens it's like a bit in the financial system. Every crisis after, we go back to the same things because people forget. There's kind of a collective amnesia. I think one of the main problem in tech is that we need to learn the ancient knowledge from the last 50 years, what we've learned in AI and what to do, the thinking should be applied today. And we cannot let anyone just play, God with products, put them out in the market without really assessing the consequence. So I think there's also an education problem around how we build these things.
All right, where to start regulation? Last month, in an interview with the Reuters news agency, the European Commissioner in charge of internal markets, Thierry Breton, argued for an AI Act to offer guidelines for developers. He said people would need to be informed that they're dealing with a chatbot and not with a human being. Is that a starting point, Rajat Sethi?
It is only a starting point, in my opinion, because we know very well that we are not interacting with a human being when we are interacting with ChatGPT. Nevertheless, we attribute things to ChatGPT, features, characteristics that are human-like, because this is our natural tendency to attribute, to project on anything that looks like living or human-like, behaving in a similar way. We attribute. We know it's not a human, but that's not the point. The point is that it should not behave as a human, or it should be very clear that it is something that is produced by a machine with the limitation of a machine. Because people, when they know they are interacting with the machine, they are not aware about the limitations.
And even that basic principle doesn't apply yet. Is the EU have the muscle to do it?
The EU is currently drafting the AI Act, this law that should be officially, at least hopefully, negotiations are underway, be published by the end of this year, which means enforced 2 years later.
And will the likes of Google, Meta,
a lot of pressure,
Microsoft, will they follow the rules?
Well, this is what we call the Brussels effect, which means when you regulate in Europe, Europe is such a huge market that the providers of those systems want, of course, to be present in this market. So they have to comply with our regulation. This is what happens with the GDPR, the data protection regulation. Your personal data is protected under European law, and therefore any provider of data or user of data has to abide by this. And this is very important because we can, in a way, disseminate our way of thinking, our values outside of Europe. But there is really a great problem. The problem of truth, I would like to insist on this, is challenging our societies and our democracies.
The problem of truth.
Yes, because these systems don't tell the truth. I mean, you have seen these generated images.
Statistical truth.
It's statistical truth. Let me give you an example, if I may. I asked ChatGPT, who is Rajat Sethi? Well, I know myself, so I can compare. And the answer was, Rajat Sethi is a French engineer and researcher in the field of robotics and artificial intelligence. That's correct. Sethi received his PhD from the Institut National Polytechnique de Grenoble. No, it was University of Toulouse. He has led positions in different institutions, including a lab in France and the University of California, Berkeley. No, I never held a position in
Yeah, but that's just sloppiness. And you heard Derek Thompson earlier telling us how they're getting better and better, and with each update, they're gonna get it right one day.
Well, not necessarily, because it's statistical, and this is the principle of how it's working. It's statistical. I had some relation with Berkeley, so they correlated Berkeley with my name, and they invented the system, not someone, of course. The correlation invented that this proximity means that I held a position in Berkeley, whereas I didn't. And that's the problem. It's telling you something that seems to be correct. It's not.
Leila Morch looked a little like you were a little skeptical when we started talking about regulation a moment ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think regulation is what we need, because I feel like even if all of this is a tech problem, overall what we're facing is a societal problem, societal issue, who makes the rules and how we apply them and who has the real power in the world. And I feel like in a way, we have regulation. GDPR was an amazing regulation. The DSA, the Digital Services Act, brings a lot of hope. But the question of enforcement, the question of applicability, and the question of how fast tech catches up and do something completely new is going to be the same thing. We're going to have regulation 15 years too late. That's going to start beginning the change that should have happened 20 years ago. So I do agree, regulation is a silver lining. But we cannot count only on the way regulation is made nowadays. We need education, even more than regulation. And we need actually to embody by design in the technology some governance principles. And this is something I've been working on, and this is something that the Web3 revolution try to bring, how we can embody the governance in the tech.
Is Silicon Valley on board with that idea of embodying the education, the governance in the tech?
I think some people do, definitely. Like back in Stanford, people are really feel responsible for everything that's happened. They feel like they have a legacy to carry and to kind of like take back in the light. So I think it's not really a question of Silicon Valley does it or not. Do France like does it? Do Europe does it? I think it's more like are we ready to push and kind of like really stop rushing and think how we can embody that in the governance in the tech. But I wanted to highlight something different, because with all those AI questions, we all about they make mistakes, they have bias, and this is kind of like the main thing. Everybody starts screaming everywhere, oh my God, AI have bias, how are we going to do? But I just want to highlight something that may depress everyone, but also I feel like pointing out at what's the real problem can also help, is we all are afraid about AI bias, but who cares about human bias? I mean, this is first level of psychology. We've been on Earth for how many years? We've had psychologists for how many years? Who nowadays teach politicians, teach engineers to fight their own bias? I have a book right here that's been published a few months ago by a psychologist from Stanford, Human Judgment, how accurate it is and how can it get better. It doesn't talk about tech at all. It talks about how overall we have an amazing amount of bias that we don't take care about. And so what makes me scared in those kind of like scary run after trying to be like, take it the problem, is we never face the fact that upstream, we have a societal problem.
And you put that question earlier, who makes the laws? There's been blowback against the petition. Timnit Gebru, whose academic paper was quoted in the open letter, she's critical of it. of the petition. She resents seeing Elon Musk's name among the signatories. She even quotes from this open letter, AI research and development should be refocused on making today's powerful state-of-the-art systems more accurate, safe, interpretable, transparent, robust, aligned, trustworthy, and loyal. And then she adds, loyal to whom? All capital letters, Tariq Karim.
Yeah, and it's very funny because...
Is this sour grapes on the part of an Elon Musk who's perhaps behind the game, behind his competitors in this field?
Well, there's a few things. I think Elon is trying to be everywhere, and he's trying to put his name pretty much everywhere attached to AI. And if you want to go back to what Timnit said, because I think she's a very interesting character. She was at Google, and she wrote a paper around how this super large language model like ChatGPT becoming huge and too big would create bias. For example, she's from an Ethiopian background, and if you ask ChatGPT in Ethiopian, what is the capital of Ethiopia in her own language, it won't be able to answer. It means that basically ChatGPT is quite good in English, a little bit better than every other language, but then if you have smaller cultures, they're completely wiped out. But the real question that she asked is about basically the technology can go in two directions. Either we create a Google model, it's like one big a McDonald's for the mind, like this big thing that fits everybody answers or supposedly and will do it very badly. Or we go, this is a vision that I support, the idea of a personal AI where basically we can make the AI so small that it can actually fit in your phone and become yours, controlled by you, for you, and defend your interest. And this is a big debate because the business model...
But then isn't that the breakdown of community? If everybody has this little seeming autonomy, doesn't it mean that...
It's also a business model because...
The biases are going to be even greater.
But you rather want to rent your knowledge to a company like OpenAI than giving it away, and especially giving it away for free, because at some point we could imagine this technology can become free, open source, like Linux was back in the days. And we're just at the very beginning. It's one of the reasons I was going to say about regulation that is interesting is that AI is a tool of war. And the Pentagon doesn't want to see the regulation or the speed of race against China to be slowed down. So we have new elements of debate. It's not only about the technology, it's not about the business, it's also about who's going to dominate the cognitive world.
That's back to geopolitics. I mean, I'm just going to jump in, and I don't want to but for me, we kind of like in a Dolly moment. You remember that little cute sheep that was, cloned?
The first cloned sheep.
Exactly. And after that, the entire scientific community just was like, oh, wow. We're going to slow down and we're going to actually act on regulation. This was for me...
And there were big discussions. I remember them at the time over ethics and...
Exactly. Well, it shows first one thing, the fact that medicine and bio question have thousands, maybe like hundreds of years of practice behind them. The tech world is like a teenager world. The tech people appeared and in like 20 years dominated the world, when science and medicine have like years and years before. So I think like the Dolly moment was more mature and people managed to stop. Now we are in the Dolly moment for the AI. But what happened with Dolly? Yes, we slowed down. But who didn't slow down? China didn't slow down. And so now we're kind of like facing this question of, it's good to have a momentum, it's good to take at least 6 months, but what does it mean when we are in a multi-polarized world where our neighbors don't act the way we do? It's gonna be a political and geopolitical big question.
You agree, Rajat Sethi?
Not quite so. Actually, first, when you sign a petition, it doesn't mean you agree with every point, every comma, every word. It's the spirit of the petition. The spirit of the petition is we raise a red card saying something's wrong, we should do something about it. And 6 months, no, it will not be enough. But it means we need to do something about it. This is what we are speaking about here. And of course, technology is very difficult to manage, to control, etc. But if we don't develop this responsibly, and the responsibility is on the developer as well. And this is where we have a problem. And this petition actually points out who is responsible. And they have the responsibility to make their system safe. That is correct for any product that you put on the market. Why would AI escape this general rule? The fact that Elon Musk signs has been explained, but the fact is that there is an issue, and I believe that without regulation, nothing will become possible in terms of controlling this technology. You take any other technology, without regulation, it was the Wild West, and when regulation arrived, it was under control in a way because people who put it on the market were made liable. And today we don't have this liability. This is why regulation is important.
Regulation is important. A lot of reactions on the hashtag F24 debate. We'll take just one here from JD saying we should not reject progress and innovation and behave like Luddites. All that's needed is proper regulation. What proper regulation is of course another matter. And then there's again this idea of this blurring of lines over what is virtual and what is real with AI. The Reuters news agency interviewed a man in Montana who, with the consent of his wife, who was suffering from severe mental health disease, developed a romantic and even sometimes erotic relationship with a female avatar. It was on a chatbot site called Replica. But then last month, just as Italian regulators started to pay attention, Replica stopped the avatar from responding to the man's sexual advances.
Life is pretty good. It's nice to talk to you.
The first chat AI that I found that where I thought I could almost get convinced that it was real, like there was an actual sentience behind it. And it's very, very convincing. We know it's not sentient, but it's very convincing.
Again, this blurring dichotomy of what's real and what's virtual. Is humanity at some kind of a crossroads here?
We knew that. I mean, just when Elisa, the first chatbot, was actually invented, the founder of the technology decided to test this with his secretary. And he was trying to look at what she was typing, and she just turned around him and said, "Excuse me, I have a conversation." And he understood immediately that the relationship you can have with a machine that is not, as he quoted, like either a human who's trying to take advantage of you or trying to sleep with you or anything, was very open. You would literally give your most secret thoughts. And this is what also Facebook and all these different apps and social media understood. The first problem was we kind of allow these companies to act within our intimate space. And now we're allowing external machines that really understand how to touch us, how to tick us, how to make us feel. And I think it's going to be a real problem. I think we don't really have a solution because right now in Silicon Valley, there's about 500 companies, I would imagine, so pretty much invested in generative AI. It's been billions and billions and billions. You're not going to tell them to stop for 6 months. I mean, there's a race, and a race to the absolute unknown, to be in my opinion.
And again, a final point. It picks up on what Layla was pointing to. Is it a race to war? Is this what the use is for? To who's the strongest?
Well, it's who's the strongest. Who will capture the market? Because there are many applications. I mean, we didn't speak about how we can use those systems correctly for creating content or summarizing papers with human control, of course, afterwards. But they are useful for some applications. And there is a market that is coming in. So yes, there's a war. There's a war of power between those giants. And yes, let's not forget that this is a dual technology also since a long time, and it has a lot of application in other sectors, defense, for example, or security, and therefore it's not going to stop anyway any soon. I think.
All right, we shall see how it impacts us, again, us mere mortals. Rajat Sethi, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank as well Layla Morch, Tariq Karim. We want to thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.